Good evening, and welcome to the, whatever it is, September Planning Board meeting, it's the City of Portsmouth. We have one member who's not present this evening, Ms. Wagala. Andrew, I'm going to ask you to sit for her if that's okay this evening.
That's great.
And Bill, we have our new additional alternate member sitting for the first time tonight. Welcome.
Thank you.
First item on the agenda is approval of minutes for August 17th and August 30th.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? I have one small item. We could change chairman to chair as going forward. I think that's consistent with the rules changes that, not the rules changes, the code changes that the code committee has recently made. Small thing.
Not finished yet.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have a request to postpone 375 Banfield. We have several items on the agenda tonight under this address.
Mr. Chair, excuse me, do we have to approve the work session minutes also?
I thought it was for both.
I
Oh,
thought
it's for both?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, my mistake.
Did you mean to comment on?
Nope, I didn't hear the approval of both.
I thought it was for both.
he listed both, and I said move to approve. So that was the intention.
Great, that's fine.
So 375 Banfield Road, it's a multiple request for subdividing property into two lots, creating a proposed lot 1 of 6.65 acres, of 354 feet of street frontage, proposed lot 2 of 7.96 acres of lot area and 200 feet of street frontage. It's Assessor's Map 266, Lot 7, and in the Industrial District. This is on the agenda as items 2A for subdivision and site plan review of completeness, and items 3A, 4A, and 4B. They have requested that this item be continued until the October meeting. If the board wishes to grant that request, I think we should consolidate and move them forward to a continuance to next month.
Move to consolidate and postpone.
Second.
Any discussion?
I was just curious, did they provide any reason why they needed to postpone? It was very late this afternoon, and I just didn't know if they have to present a reason, or could they just, at any time, pull out?
It's something that came up because of a review that I had with staff the other day, some technical deficiencies that need to be worked out, and one of them might involve the city council possibly, depending on how things go. So that's the reason. It came from the city, the request,
Okay.
the suggestion, and then they made the request.
All right, yeah, that's helpful because,
It was very last minute, yeah.
and it's helpful, at least to me, to know why. You know, this has been in the works for a long time, and 5 hours before the meeting, they pull out.
I also have some issues with the 2,800 pages of material that were submitted, and we can discuss that not tonight. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We also have, for folks in the audience and those watching on Zoom, if anyone, a request to Jeffrey and Emma and Melissa Foy as owners of property at 67 Ridges Court. That will be heard at the October 19th meeting as well, because there was a noticing error. So if you're here for that application, that one will not be heard this evening, and that does not require any board action because it was a notice problem. We have a request of Clyde C. Logue and Mary Duff Castell as owners of property at 27 Shaw Road, requesting preliminary and final subdivision approval for a lot line relocation and subdivision as follows. Tax map 223, lot 18, decreasing from 34,205 square feet and 230 feet of frontage to 20,100.
199.
Only
There's an extra
199 square feet and 129 feet of frontage. Map 223, lot 18-1, decreasing from 23,149 square feet and 127 feet of frontage to 21,241 square feet and 101 feet of frontage. The creation of a new lot with an area of 15,812 square feet and 100 feet of frontage. This property is located in Assessor's Map 223, Lot 18 and 18-1, and lies in the Single Residence B District. This was a motion for completeness. I
So
believe.
moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Complete. Request of 928 South Street, New Hampshire LLC as owner for property at 928 South Street, requesting preliminary and final subdivision approval for lot line relocation as follows. Tax map 221 lot 88, increasing from 69,272 square feet and 165 feet of frontage to 102,228 square feet and 343 feet of frontage. Map 221 lot 87, increasing from 505,739 square feet and 337 feet of frontage to 537,966 square feet and 120 feet of frontage. And tax map lot 221 lot 90, decreasing in size from 284,452 square feet to 219,116 square feet with no change to street frontage. This property is located at Assessor's Map 221 lots 87, 88, and 90 and is also in the single residence B district. Again, a motion for completeness.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Banfield has been postponed. There's no site plan review for JKM. We have, the next one is site plan, request of JKM Realty LLC for property at 700 Peverly Road, requesting site plan review approval for construction of a 3,385 square foot addition to the existing commercial building with associated site improvements. This property is on Assessor's Map 252, Lot 2-10, and lies within the industrial district. Motion for acceptance, completeness.
So moved.
Did I
I don't
miss
see that.
something?
Yeah,
Wasn't listed under.
I don't see it under.
It's under
Was
new
on-
business.
It was on, it's on the agenda, the revised agenda.
Oh, that must not be in our package.
Yeah, but it's not part of, it's not a determination of completeness, right? It's under public hearings, new
New
business.
It's under site plan review determined, it
These are all completeness.
hear you, but probably wasn't in the email,
Oh,
the agenda
sorry.
around the
Okay.
packet, but.
Right.
Second out.
And I don't have the revised one here.
Thank you.
Put it on the page.
I didn't think I was crazy.
Nope.
Folks,
Move to determine complete.
Andrew, did you make a motion? Andrew made a motion.
Andrew made a motion.
So moved. Second.
Second. Whatever.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? They're all accepted. We have no old business public hearings, correct? New business public hearings. Item D, request of JKM Realty as LLC as owner for property at 700 Hill Road, requesting site plan review approval for construction of a 3,385 square foot addition to an existing commercial building with associated site improvements. Said property is located on Assessor's Map 252, Lot 2-10, and lies in the industrial district. Who is here to present this application?
So the
Thank
engineer,
you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board. Participating via Zoom tonight, it's John Shagnon from Ambit Engineering, Haley Ward, representing JMK Realty LLC. Also in the audience is Stuart Mitchell, the contractor for this project. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
So the project is at 700 Beverly Hill Road, to be known in the future as 10 West Road. The plan set has the cover sheet, which you see here, which has the site location, the zoning, and the development team. The next sheet is a property survey plan from 2001 that shows the property boundaries. The next plan after that is the existing conditions plan, showing the site features as they exist now, and mentions some demolition or has notes about it. There are currently 3 small structures in front of the rear building, which is on the left side of the page, that will be removed. The next sheet is the proposed site plan. And essentially, the project is an addition to the east or southeast of that existing rear building that is 3,385 square feet. The addition is going to have 6 commercial auto body repair bays. That's what is added to the building. They all have exterior access with a garage door on the east side. This plan shows a little bit of additional landscaping, and that landscaping will replace some of the impervious surface that is being taken up, so that at the end of this site plan process, the amount of impervious surface on the property remains unchanged. There's also some parking spaces shown on the bottom or east side of the lot. Currently, the lot is not striped, and it is not our intention to stripe it, but as a part of the application, we're showing that conforming parking based on the parking demand can be provided on the lot. The next sheet is the grading plan. Starting at the top or the west side, the drainage all goes to that west end of the property and then exits through a pipe. And the plan is to expand that detention pond that exists now to make it function better, and also to allow us to put in some sediment forebays. The plan shows also some excavation to clear a swale on the west side of the property behind the rear commercial building. And it shows the location of some drainage which crosses the property. There are a couple of catch basins on West Road that handle some street drainage that cross over the lot and to the rear. And that is the subject of the proposed easement, as some of that drainage is coming from the city road. The next sheet is the utility plan. The only thing that is being shown really here is the relocation of the gas service. The rest of the utilities will be extended internally within the building. And then the next sheet is an easement plan showing the easement area that would be dedicated to the drainage easement to the city. Then there's the usual detail sheets. The project received Technical Advisory Committee approval on August 1st, subject to one condition, and that condition was that the easement be provided. The planning memo details 6 proposed conditions, and the applicant is okay with those conditions, subject to some discussion about timing. What we would like to do is move item 2.1, or a section of 2.1. Item 2.1 talks about the site plan and all easements being recorded before a building permit, and the applicant requests that be revised to just say the site plan be recorded before the building permit, due to the timing of the season and the desire to get under construction. The applicant requests that the final filing of the easement, which is going to require some coordination and review with both legal department and city council, that be put into a condition subsequent that would be required to be completed before the issuance of a building permit. That said, items 2.5 and 2.6 may need some rewording, but I'm not sure that they have to be, because those things will be a part of the negotiations or the working of that easement, so that it's in a form that's acceptable to both the applicant and the city. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Questions of the applicant? Yes, Corey.
Thank you, John. So I think it's great the proposed stormwater improvements. However, are there invasive species, Japanese knotweed, in that location where the stormwater basin is going to be constructed?
There is some invasives back there. I don't know if they're knotweed, but there definitely are invasives, but they will be removed to construct the new facility.
I just didn't see anything in the package regarding invasive species management. I think it might be prudent to add language in the documents that just addressing the management of invasive species during construction.
That's a great point. I don't know if you saw the standard section that we provide in the inspection and maintenance plan regarding invasive species and the need to I try to identify and remove. But that's a good point, and that's acceptable as an additional condition 2.7.
All right. Excellent. Thank you.
Yes, Andrew?
Recently, when driving on Peverly Hill, we had some pretty intensive rain, and at the front of this property on Peverly Hill, there was quite a bit of pooling and flooding created by that rain. And I'm wondering if you could address at the very least which part of this drainage analysis and plan will hopefully mitigate some of that, just because of the large amount of impervious surface here. I don't know if that's a City of Portsmouth consideration, but I just don't want that to continue to happen. It was certainly probably 12 to 18 inches deep on the side of Peverly Hill right in front of this subject property. So if you can speak to that, Mr. Shagnon, that would be great.
Sure. So the property that Portsmouth Auto Body occupies slopes away from West Road. The area that's in the front where the what I'll call the intake shop is located with the customer parking, nothing is changing there whatsoever. Any additional work is in the watershed that is going to the rear of the lot. So I understand that there might be flooding on Peverly Hill Road, and that situation will not be altered at all by this project, either good or bad. I think that's an existing condition with Peverly Hill Road that would be something that needs attention by the city in another venue.
Yeah, certainly could be. I just didn't want it to exacerbate the problem.
Yep, absolutely. This is not going to contribute to that problem.
Any other questions?
Chairman.
Yes.
Just looking for some clarification on the request for the site plan being recorded before the building permit. Can you go over that again one more time, please?
Sure. The condition 2.1 talks about any site plans and easements being recorded before the building permit. That's pretty standard.
Yeah.
This project is not changing an existing condition where there is some drainage that came onto the lot that has existed for some time. So there's a couple of catch basins in West Road. So city water is coming onto the lot. So that in the process of going through technical advisory, the Department of Public Works wanted to ensure that there was an easement for that. So the applicant is willing to do that. The problem with having the condition be prior to building permit is the timing. As we're approaching rapidly the part of the construction season where winter sets in, we would like to get under construction. So the easement finalization, which would take some a procedure whereby we would apply to the or submit a document to the legal department, they would review, then it would have to go through the city council for approval and then recording. It just seems like that would add extended delay to getting started. So we're just requesting that the planning board make that a condition that would be prior to occupancy permit, but not building permit.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So John, following up, the site plan would be okay to be recorded? And-
Yes, I think you could record the site plan. because it says proposed easement, so.
Right,
you
right.
have- And I believe that staff did talk to legal about this.
Any other questions for the applicant? I'm going to open up the public hearing. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak to, for, or against this application? Or on Zoom? Anyone on Zoom?
If you'd like to speak to this on Zoom, please raise your hand.
One more request. Anybody wish to speak to, for, or against this application? I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Board's deliberation.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we vote to find that the site plan application meets the requirements set forth in the site plan regulation section 2.9 evaluation criteria, and adopt the findings of fact as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Findings of fact? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Findings of fact are adopted as presented.
Mr. Chairman, and I'll probably need some help from whoever decides to second this, but, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we vote to grant site plan approval with the following conditions. So, conditions to be satisfied subsequent to final approval of site plan, but prior to the issuance of a building permit or the commencement of any site work or construction activity. Items 2.2 through 2.6, as outlined in the staff memorandum, including an additional item that the applicant include language addressing invasive species during construction on the plan set, and then a following condition that prior to the issuance of the occupancy permit, the site plan and any easement plans and deeds shall be recorded at the registry of deeds by the city or as deemed appropriate by the planning department.
Second,
What?
but I believe it's 2.5 and 2.6 are supposed to be prior to occupancy, but
Yeah.
subsequent to building permit.
Okay.
That's what the applicant requested.
Yeah. And you forgot 2.1.
Well,
He amended that.
I moved 2.12 out of that
Okay.
chunk and into a,
But I think the idea is that site plan will go on record with proposed easement prior
Okay.
to building permit. And
So-
the others will, 2.5 and 2.6 will be subsequent to that, but prior to occupancy.
so it'd be modifying 2.1 to be the site plan be recorded. You pull out easement plans and deeds and include that into occupancy,
Correct.
along with 2.5 and 2.6.
Yes.
And you could add 2.8 would be
The maintenance.
essentially 2.1, but without the site plan. It would be conditioned
Correct.
subject.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Any
2.
easement plans and deeds shall be recorded at the registry, can be 2 point.
And Peter, you mean 2.7 is invasive species?
Right.
Perfect.
Yep. I'm on board.
Sounds good.
Everybody clear with that?
Crystal.
I think we understand it, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
A request of Clyde C. Logue, and apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, and Mary Duff Castell as owners for property located at 27 Shaw Road, requesting preliminary and final subdivision approval for a lot line relocation and subdivision as follows. Tax map lot 223, lot 18, decreasing from 34,205 square feet and 230 feet of frontage to 20,199 square feet and 129 feet of frontage. Map 223, lot 18-1, decreasing from 23,149 square feet and 127 feet of frontage to 21,241 square feet and 101 feet of frontage, and creation of a new lot with area of 15,812 square feet and 100 feet of frontage. This property is on Assessor's Map 223, lot 18, 18-1, and lies in the SRB Single Residence District. Who's here to speak to this application?
Eric Weinrib, Altus Engineering, representing Bonnie and Clyde Logue. Clyde is here this evening, if you have any questions of him after So last summer, we were working, or Jones and Beach was working with the previous owner, Austin Repair and Renovation. They successfully subdivided the parcel into two parcels. We assisted with the stormwater management design. And at that time, the city recognized that Shaw was a private way. The plans were recorded and signed and at the registry. And since then, actually, the legal department has opined that Shaw is now a public road, but our land is to the center of the road. But our setbacks and frontage are measured from the edge of the right-of-way, which is a little bit different than what the previous subdivision had, and it also, as we go forward through this, that corrects the existing lot in that area. Now Bonnie and Clyde own both parcels, and they wish to subdivide for a third parcel. When this project was looked at originally, and you can see this on the existing plan, the thought was that the existing house was going to be raised and that we would actually subdivide that portion to the, I'll say, the west of the existing easement into two parcels, and then sell a 25-foot swath to the easterly abutter to make that non-conforming lot less non-conforming. For whatever reason, that did not work out, and so what we're proposing to do is retain the existing house and do a conforming lot to the east of that house. What that requires us to do is take a little bit of the existing lot that was subdivided off on the to the north and up at the top of the hill, and so now we get rid of the easement that now is through the middle of the lot for the drainage and move that to the east side of the property. All three lots, well, the lot is in the SRB zone where the minimum lot size is 15,000 square feet. We meet and exceed the minimum lot size, and we also meet and exceed, two lots are exactly at 100, but we meet all the zoning requirements as far as lot size, frontage, and so forth. So there's no relief required from the zoning board. On August 1st, we presented to TAC. They voted to recommend approval with 5 stipulations. We made revisions to the plan. The plan's before you, we believe, and I think the opinion of the staff is satisfactorily addressed those stipulations. So, just wanted to talk a little bit about stormwater. Last year when we went through the application process, it was a detailed, exhaustive review that we put together a drainage study. It was reviewed by DPW. Part of that infrastructure was installed on the upper lot in anticipation of the redevelopment. It wasn't completed because they knew that there was potential for this lot line adjustment. So the drainage comes out of the abutting lot to the north, and it comes over and stops generally in this area. So now, instead of the water discharging across the line and heading into this house, as a temporary, it stops here and it runs across the lawn. So it, or the open space. So what we'll be doing with this project is we'll be extending that down, completing the drainage design, or the implementation of the drainage design. And through the TAC process and concerns with the abutters, we re-looked at our drainage calc. We believe that we adequately addressed the on-site, the down gradient, and the up gradient concerns raised by TAC and the abutters. A few weeks ago, that Friday storm, I was actually out at Pease for a project meeting, and I got out of the meeting and I like, wow, it's raining pretty hard. And as soon as I got out, the phone was ringing from several people. I went to actually come to this site because one of the abutters called me. And as I was heading down Bartlett, the newly improved Bartlett, the road was closed because it was inundated. This was a storm that was, when I went back and looked at what I've heard from the weather station said 1.5 inches in 2 hours. I don't believe that out at Pease. But what people told me in downtown and around is between 4 and 6 inches. And that, when you look at the storm events, that's somewhere between a 2 and 500-year storm event. It was off the charts, literally. So, you know, here's this intersection that Bartlett was redone. It was flooded. I went over to Shaw and Walker Bungalow, and yeah, water was coming out of the pipe and cascading down, and there was a lot of water coming down there. As I turned, went up the hill, and went up Walker Bungalow towards Little Harbor, the water coming down Little Harbor Road was even more. It was insane. But within an hour or so, it was all gone. And so what I'm saying is, you may hear more concerns. We've had concerns from the abutters in the past. What we saw the other day was a pretty off-the-chart storm. So in summary, we're keeping the same size pipe as we extend out. What we don't know is the amount of homes, roof gains, foundation drains that are tied in up gradient. Our slope increases as we come onto the property, so we have more ability to convey water. We have a steep slope across our property. If you look at the property up gradient, it's dead flat. So we know that whatever pipe is in there has very little capacity. And I say this just so that everyone understands that we looked at this project and we looked at it in severe detail, and we're confident with what we've done. I think that I've addressed on comments attack. I open it up to your comments at this point.
Questions of the applicant?
Mr. Chair, I have one.
Yes.
Yeah, just wanted to, noted on your plan, there were, Technical Advisory Committee asked for a lot of notes to be added to the plans related to drainage, correct? And I was just curious, instead of adding notes, did you ever, is there a reason why, like a preliminary stormwater infiltration structure wasn't designed on the proposed lot?
Yes, there was, because I have been through this exercise many, many times, and whatever I design, someone else is going to build something, or the house is going to be different. And so I would rather not frivolously spend an applicant's money on designing a stormwater management plan that isn't going to be implemented, that we're promising that we will design a site appropriate to whatever the person who wants to build a house there proposes.
All right,
so
so-
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, so you'd rather be sure than to try to estimate a drainage infiltration system? My only concern is, and maybe I'm worried about something I shouldn't, but what if a house is built and the soils are, for whatever reason, don't accept, say an infiltration basin can't be built, or we have we've created the lot, so we can't undo that, and then you might have a situation where the site can't handle the stormwater.
So there's many ways to deal with the stormwater. If it came to it, we would do, you're not necessarily looking at infiltration. No matter what site you're on, there's not a lot of infiltration, even on your A-soil site. What you're looking to do is mimic the pre-development condition to treat the runoff. So you may have larger rain gardens, you may have subsurface detention to mitigate it, to hold it back so that
Right,
you're
yeah.
getting the same rate and volume discharging.
Well, I guess I'm trying to say, is this a common way to handle this, I guess? I've never seen it, but is this
It
a
is-
common way to address a future design for a house?
Yes, as an example, with the consulting engineers for the town of Newington, the large development that just went in off Nimble Hill Road across the street primarily from the elementary school. It's 16 lots on the water. And the design engineer requested a very similar thing because they didn't know what they'd be building, and those are, so each lot that comes in requires a review of the stormwater management design.
Okay.
Eric, just for the benefit of everyone, what's your design year, design storm? It's not 200 years, it's not 500.
No, oh gosh, no. It is what is in the town regs, city regs. Corey, you should know that off the top of your head, Bruce, as well as I do.
Corey on the
I believe we have to match for the 50.
Okay, well,
Yes.
rather than looking at, the idea is you design for that, you don't design for every event. That was my,
Exactly. Well, we do have to design for the smaller events as well.
right.
But we can't, if we design for a 100-year storm or a 200-year storm, every site would look awful
If you could do it.
if you could do it.
Okay, that was the question point. Any other questions to the applicant? I guess if there are no other questions, I'll open up a public hearing. Public hearing is open. Anybody wish to speak to, for, or against this application, either here or on Zoom? Please state your name and address for the record and step up to the microphone.
Hello, I'm Brian Nesty. I live at 184 Walker Bungalow Road in Portsmouth. I am the main abutter to this project. My husband, Brady, is going to speak on our behalf. I actually have a letter that was given to me by David Witham, who's on an airplane and cannot join us by Zoom today, and he asked me if I would read it to the board.
Okay.
Dear Chairman Chalman and the board members, my name is David Witham, and I reside at 238 Walker Bungalow Road. I've resided in this neighborhood for over 30 years. I'm here to speak in opposition to the proposed subdivision for the property located at 27 Shaw Road. He did have some notes in here about the way it was presented on the drawings, because the drawings were a little counter to the other things. I'm not going to go into that. I'm just going to go down to observations to the application. As the board knows, simply because an application meets technical standards, there are other factors to consider, as noted in our zoning ordinance, such as the purpose and the pertinent section of zoning and the overall spirit and intent of their zoning. It's such factors like these that I strongly feel this proposal does not meet the standards. Looking at the zoning section on subdivision, there's a very strong argument that the 6 objectives noted are not all met. For example, the proposal does not provide for a harmonious development, as it is compatible with as it is not compatible with adjacent uses. This is a forced proposal. The shape of the proposed lot easily is the most irregular shape in the neighborhood. It may suggest the engineers are very creative, but it also clearly shows that this is not harmonious. I personally feel that when the zoning ordinance requires 100 feet of lot frontage, the goal is to achieve several things, such as the appropriate spacing of structures, safe sight lines for entering and exiting the lot, and respecting light and air among neighbors. The simple fact that the lot is not 100 feet wide, though this is not technically noted in the zoning, I think the intent is there to again achieve the goal of light and air. The fact that the proposal required funneling out along the street in order to meet the 100-foot requirement speaks for itself. And what if the lot was only 80 feet wide? Would the board allow for the funneling approach to cut across the house lot 20 feet to meet the 100-feet requirement? Simply speaks to how this proposed lot does not meet our zoning's intent. The purpose of this, in the purpose section of zoning for subdivisions, it is noted that a development should not impede the function and natural drainage system. I think that one would be hard-pressed to find a more convoluted drainage proposal. There's a complicated series of drainage easements proposed that include several right-angled turns and long traveling runs across the entire property line. I have no doubt that the engineers have presented calculations on how this will meet the stormwater demand. But again, looking at the proposal, this couldn't be more forced into the site. With the rains we've had, I've had my reservations on this properly functioning. I find the proposed location of the driveway very confusing as well. This is that upper driveway on Walker Bungalow. The reality is that Walker Bungalow is very narrow and does not function well as a 2-lane road. Cars drive down the middle of the road to pinch over to the side to almost have to stop to let other people go by. To add this driveway on a section of the lot that is just over 25 feet seems dangerous to me, as it is now sandwiched between the existing driveway and another proposed driveway. It is also directly across from a driveway where cars back out onto the road. Most concerning is that this proposed driveway is at the steepest section of Walker Bungalow where the sight lines are at their worst. I believe the zoning asks for 100 feet of frontage to make sure that there is adequate sight lines for driveways and does not meet that intent. Overall, this application is proposing to put a square peg in a round hole purely for financial reasons. For those of you who have visited the site, it should be clear that wedging a home in this space does not make sense, nor does it meet the intent and purpose of our zoning. We should not be creating such irregular shaped lots with poorly located driveways and overly complicated drainage systems just to squeeze in a very expensive home. This does not meet the city's housing challenges. With that said, I respectfully ask this board to not approve this second subdivision to the original lot, as it simply does not meet what is the purpose of the subdivision housing zoning. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
So I was pre-introduced, but I'm Brady Bird, Brian's husband. Also live at 184 Walker Bungalow. We are here to speak in opposition of the proposed subdivision. Brian explained a bunch of this stuff already, just that we're the one that are surrounded by the lot here on all sides. We were friends with the Ionescos, who were the previous owners. We're friends with Bonnie and Clyde as well. We don't want to create a contentious situation, but instead we're just here to represent ourselves as citizens and neighbors. During the time we've owned this property since 2002, we've undergone major improvements and investments in the property, understanding that we were in a position that we would not see changes that would dramatically impact our property values. And this was partially ensured by it being in Zone B, and many of the homes in the neighborhood abut conservation land. But another significant factor is that all these homes relied on private sewer. So to our side was a large septic field, which sort of ensured green space between us. And so there was a comment at the previous TAC meeting where they said that the property satisfied the definition of urban infill, which seems kind of odd in a Zone B where we're literally abutting some of the largest green space in there. It doesn't seem like it's very urban, and it doesn't seem like it's in need of infill. When the town came in and brought the sewer system through, we were said, okay, nothing's really changing, we're just moving you to public sewer. But apparently, everything really is changing, because now there's a capacity to make 3 lots out of 1, and I can see this, that there's a lot of other lots in that neighborhood now, absent septic systems, that are able to subdivide, based on the Zone B pieces. But at any rate, we've owned this property for a while, and we were always aware that there was, the possibility to divide lots. And, when Bonnie and Clyde, Austin Repair proposed the upper lot, we fully supported that. Just to expand on that, I'm sorry if I feel like I'm bouncing around a bit here, but on the drainage piece, it calls into question why it had to run 100 and something feet in the other direction. I suppose ledge and things would have done it, but it creates that acute angle. There's a certain, whatever the plumber's rule is, that every time you make an angle, it's X amount off the flow. So that's coming down. But the other thing that happens is that in between the lots right now is a natural wash about 30 feet wide. That's, trees and unimproved stuff. And what will happen is that when that pipe is brought in, all the trees will be cleared from there. So that natural buffer between the two parcels will be gone. And even if a new buyer wanted to put some sort of a natural, but they can't, because now the pipe's there and you won't be able to plant over it. So it, in the end, it really hems in the lot here, and it feels a little forced. Now, I know part of the plan was to save the existing home, and that's why they slided the line over, and that's why our deal to acquire a buffer fell through. But to the previous point in Mr. Witham's letter, we've got the 100 feet of frontage, and we've got the 15,000 foot. But the only way the 15,000 foot is met is adding that wedge up with the extra driveway. The only way the 100 feet is met is turning a little funnel on the line. So it feels pretty, shoehorned in there. And not only that, if you look at all the other lots in the neighborhood, how many have little spurs going out one end and on the other and stuff? So in closing, I'd like to say, it's certainly some creative engineering to pull this off and to come up with something that technically meets the ordinance. Our personal interest in this is that it likely represents a degradation in the value of our property. We have a 80-year-old lot that is completely non-conforming, but what it means is that there would be a new house perhaps 20 feet from the existing house. And it's, so we're worried about the sight lines and everything like that and our privacy. But, when the sewer system came in, I don't believe the city intended a rush on subdivision. And that seems to be what this may be the beginning of. But we would respectfully ask that you don't approve this plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak to, for, or against this application? Anybody on Zoom?
No.
Last call.
Eric Weinberg again. I certainly have known Mr. Witham a very long time and respect Mr. Witham very much. And I do not agree with his belief that it's odd-shaped and contrived and so forth. If you actually look at the parent parcel, it's anything but rectilinear. So we were working with the land that was there. The upper lot has a thumb off the back. We could have very easily made that a rectangle and not provided the access on Walker Bungalow. We chose to do that to give the owner, whoever develops this, an option to access from the higher end or access from the lower end. I think that whoever develops it, if anyone develops it, certainly could access from both sides, and I think that they're both safe access points. I would point out, actually, I think that anyone who says that Walker Bungalow is unsafe at being as narrow it is, and who lives there, should be thrilled. Because if it means that people have to pull over into the breakdown lane to pass, that means that all the kids that living there know that it's pretty safe because everyone has to drive slow. So I think that that narrow road is actually a benefit to that community. I just feel that the abutter has been living with a buffer of someone else's for a very long time, and I don't think that they appreciate, even if this were not approved, that the applicant, if it denied, could build a garage, build another structure right up to that side setback and clear all that vegetation that is perceived as their buffer area. So not that that's a threat, not that that's anything other than a reality that that buffer area that's up to that property line could disappear tomorrow. And so the feeling that, if we approve the subdivision, we're going to lose our buffer, that reality exists today. I don't mean it in any other way, that I know that those things do happen. Any questions of me?
Public hearing, no questions.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? 2-4 against this application. Still nobody on Zoom?
No.
Last call. I'm going to close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. The board's consideration, findings of fact.
Well, first we got the waiver requests.
Okay. I'll let you lead us through it.
All right. I'll make a motion, we vote to grant the requested waivers to the subdivision standards from section 9.2, maintenance bonds, if I got that right.
You did.
Thank you. Item A, strict conformity would pose an unnecessary hardship to the applicant, and waiver would not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Second.
Can I just clarify something? The email I sent out later last week had a correction on the waiver. He's requesting from 9.1.
Oh.
It's fine. And in the package, it went out, it was 9.2, but.
So it's not the maintenance bonds?
It's the same thing, just 9.1.
Oh, okay.
Wrong number.
IX.1.
Gotcha.
Did you want to say anything?
I was just going to say, in regards to the maintenance bonds requirement, that it's, in my mind, it's typical for larger subdivisions in which there's roads being built, in which, you know, there could be an issue where the city has to take those over or complete those projects. So I think it's not applicable in this situation.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we vote to find that the subdivision application meets the standards and requirements set forth in the subdivision rules and regulations, to adopt the findings of fact as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
We have one opposed.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion that we vote to grant preliminary and final subdivision approval of the following stipulations 2.1 through 2.5 as outlined in the staff memorandum, and I will also include a 2.6 that the applicant install a privacy fence along the drain line on proposed lot 18-0-1. And the reason I would add that is because adding a privacy fence during construction is going to be a lot easier than adding a privacy fence after that drain line is already installed.
Second.
Yeah.
Can I just clarify where you were saying that will be located?
Essentially, where that drain line runs on the, I guess it would be the eastern side of proposed.
18.1, so right along here.
Yes.
Could you define what a privacy fence, what you mean by
Just
that?
going to add to the satisfaction of the abutter, a privacy fence.
Yeah, I'd be cautious about that. You should be specific about what you have in mind.
Yeah, I was thinking in this case, it sounds like probably the best thing would be an 8-foot tall privacy fence along.
That would violate.
Yeah,
So,
can't go
It's
that
got to
high.
be 6 feet.
6 feet, okay. 6 feet.
so it may have to. You can only have a 4-foot fence in the front yard.
No, I'm sorry. This is not, unfortunate.
So, yeah, I would be fine with the 6-foot tall privacy fence on the side that we just discussed, on top of that drain line.
Would you consider modifying that to be a 6-foot tall privacy fence at the applicant's discretion? So that would be added to the, so it'd be a part of the approved plan, but not necessarily a requirement?
Yeah, I guess I'm open, open up for discussion. I would be, if that's the way the board would like to go. I mean, I think in this particular case, if that drain line was not going to be installed, then yes, I would certainly say let's wait until after, whatever home might go in and whatever. But in this particular case, where that drain line is going to be installed, you're going to have that entire area completely cleared of all vegetation, everything else. That drain line's going to be put in. The last thing any fence contractor is going to want to do down the road is install any sort of fence in that particular location. So I think if a fence is going to go in, now is the time to do it.
I guess Andrew and then Greg and Andrew.
Certainly don't disagree with the concept and the theory behind that, but I do think that it's a little bit subjective, and there's a lot of on-the-ground type of adaptation that is going to happen for that lot and the abutting lot. I think it would be in the best interest for the engineer and applicant to find what is most suitable and allow them the opportunity to have a dialogue with maybe the abutters about this. If it is left vague enough and general enough on a site plan, that could be something to put in the conditions, but maybe not so much as requiring it on that drain line, because it could be unsightly and a constraint down the road. Although I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I couldn't think of another solution. So
No, and it's valid.
unless someone else has something.
Greg.
Yeah, I mean, what Andrew said, I completely agree with Corey's intent, but one person's fence. But I would even go further, and you could say it could do it in landscaping, but that's not going to work in a drainage ditch. I can't put privet hedges over a drainage pipe. That's just not going to work. But somebody might want to look at privets instead of a fence. So I like Chairman Chelman's slight exception. Put it on the plan and let them have it as an option.
I'd be fine with that.
I like the intent, and I second it, so I would accept the change. I think is
Well, I can't make a motion. It's up to you guys to do
well, I
that
think
if
he
you want
made
to.
it. So, and if you want to change it, I'll accept it.
Yeah, so I will change it. So the item that I included that the applicant needs to install a privacy fence is that the applicant should consider and work with the abutter on installing a privacy fence along the drain line.
You got to take out the need.
Yeah.
Right?
The applicant may construct a privacy fence along the drain line.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
So if they want to add that, they can add it, and so it doesn't have to be shown on the plan. That was what I was suggesting, putting words in your mouth.
Oh, that's fine. I was just trying to come up with a solution.
I'm in agreement as long as Peter knows how to write it out.
Right, so I'm going to read this back. The applicant may construct a privacy fence along the property line that conforms to zoning, because there's going to be a distance where it can't be 6 feet, it has to be 4 feet, so.
Any other discussion?
I understand all of the comments that came in. I mean, it does sort of seem like they're kind of trying to, create a lot by putting in the extra little tail that goes out to Walker Bungalow. It might seem like it's not a great idea. I would be curious to see how the drainage works once that is all put in, but in the end, it does fit our regulations, and therefore we don't really have a good reason to not move it forward.
Any other comments? So I believe we have a motion, a second. Does everybody understand how this has been revised? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Both.
Motion carries, one opposed.
Nine 28 South Street.
Request of 928 South Street NH LLC as owner for property at 928 South Street, requesting preliminary and final subdivision approval for lot line relocation as follows. Tax map 221 lot 88, increasing from 69,272 square feet and 165 feet of frontage to 102,228 square feet and 343 feet of frontage. Map 221 lot 87, increasing from 505,739 square feet and 337 feet of frontage to 537,966 square feet and 120 feet of frontage. And tax map 221 lot 90, decreasing in size from 284,452 square feet to 219,116 square feet, with no change in street frontage. This property is located on Assessor's Map 221 lots 87, 88, and 90 and lies in the single residence SRB district. Who is here to present for this application?
Eric Weinrib, also with Patty Ramsey. Tax map 221 lots 87, 88, and 90, and representing 928S South S Street LLC, which is the Edgewood facility, KMF Management LLC, which is one of Patty's entity, and Dave Pat LLC, one of Patty's entities. I just want to say, everyone's left, but it's an honor to be representing Patty and Edgewood and her facilities. I'm aware of them since I've come to town in the early 80s, and they're an institution that this city should be incredibly proud of. I believe it was started in the 70s with your family, your dad, and they've done great things for our elderly and our people in need. In 2022, Patty sold Edgewood to 928S Street LLC, and she maintained the front property, which is the Pines. She has a small inn on that for seniors. And this is truly a housekeeping exercise. When she owned everything, there was stuff over the lot lines that were used by all the entities, and so now we want to clean that up. The existing pond, which is an amenity to Edgewood, was on one of her other properties, so that's going to become on the Edgewood property. In general, the Edgewood does not lose any land, it gains a little bit of land, and the greenhouse property, which is the narrow strip on South Street and that has the larger parcel in the woods, reduces some land. The Pines, the upfront parcel, which is another odd-shaped parcel, that becomes more rectilinear, and then we provide an easement for the Pines to access across the driveway to the site, provide an easement for the existing Edgewood sign to be on Patty's parcel. I think everything on this property, what we're doing is just, like I said, is cleaning it up. It becomes more regular shaped, and it was a condition of the sale that we ended up cleaning up these properties, and it took a little bit of time to get everyone on the same page to work it out. I do want to make a couple comments. Our plan does have a typo. In the title block, we identify that is tax map 90, and it's really tax map 221, so we will have that corrected if you're successful or this is voted on successfully for us. I do want to comment on the waivers. I didn't on the last application. The waiver request was something I believe that Peter said came from the legal department, and it was it suggested that we ask for the waivers. It is my opinion that the waivers are not needed. Bonding is required to ensure that site improvements are completed. This application has no site improvement. So if you deny the waiver and we have to provide a bond, I'm not sure what I'd be providing a bond for. So because your conditions in the approval would be that we set the monuments, we have the Mylar recorded, and then we, or complete the Mylar and have it recorded, provide the GIS to the city. So not sure what we would be bonding if you don't grant the waiver. That's it. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions to the applicant? You sat down quickly? No, you don't have to get back up there. I just. No questions? I did have one simple question. Is there a path that the high school students use to go across the back?
There is.
Is that something that has been any consideration to formalizing at any point?
We haven't really talked about that at all.
It's not. I'm just asking out of curiosity, not as an imposition.
No, we haven't thought about that. I know that, so over a period of time, we looked at a lot of different things. There was opportunities that we were thinking about doing development out here, and former staff members really wanted to see that chunk put into conservation, but that's not today. So if something were to happen down the road, that might be something we'd consider.
Fair enough. Thank you. I'm going to open the public hearing. If nobody has any questions, public hearing is open. Anybody wish to speak to, for, or against this application? Yes, sir. Name and address for the record, please.
Dexter Robley, 2 Rand Court, tax map 221, lot 89, and I have the great privilege of being Patty's neighbor for the past 23 years. An exemplary neighbor, and as the gentleman alluded, all of us have an Edgewood Care story, and we have very dear friends, and they had absolutely amazing care. And a thank you to Patty. And also a welcome to the new folks who own Edgewood, and I look forward to being their neighbor for a long time. A couple things, if I may. The first thing I would say is a wholehearted approval for this lot line adjustment. And further gracious thank you for having the trails open for so long. It would be lovely if they could stay open. Being at the end of Rand Court, then we have a lot of traffic of folks coming by, bicycles and kids and dogs and people and families, and it's just marvelous. I have 2 worries about everybody. The first worry is to get to Rand Court, and there's a lot of folks that use Rand Court to get to the high school and after high school, is it would be lovely if, I know this is not quite the right spot, but since we're focusing on the area as community development, at the top of Wybird, if we could potentially get in the future a crosswalk to get across so that folks can safely use Rand Court. As we know, South Street is ever more trafficked. And on the other end of it is then we could somehow do some forest management, because many of the trees are beyond their serviceable life, so to speak, and there's a great deal of timber that needs to be addressed. And we've had, we on Rand Court, my lovely wife Lisa and I, we had a couple big trees come down and very recently, so there's a lot of trees that are in need of attention if that's possible. May I ask 2 things from Patty? On the greenhouse, if possible, at the very end of it, there's an overgrown pear tree, and as soon as the snow and the ice comes in, that pear tree leans over Rand Court, and it actually drags on vehicles. And I'd love to prune it, if you will. I'd be glad to take that on or have it pruned. And the other item is that when further development happens on a big parcel and you've got those beautiful trees, if possible, then if we could harvest 1 or 2 of those and I could have them sliced up, and I'd be glad to make raised beds for the public schools. I'm a former school teacher in Portsmouth and have had that great honor as well. So thank you very much to the board. A special thank you to Patty. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Anybody else wish to speak to, for, or against this application? Anybody on Zoom? Going to close the public hearing. So do we need waivers or not?
I think if we do the second option, it's probably the most prudent. So I'll make a motion we vote to grant the requested waivers to the subdivision standards from section 9.1 and item B. Specific circumstances relative to the subdivision or conditions of the land in such subdivision indicate that the waiver will properly carry out the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Second.
The reason for that is there's no improvements taking place at the site.
Just setting monuments, which can be a project, but Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Waiver is granted.
I'll make a motion we vote to find that the subdivision application meets the standards and requirements set forth in the subdivision rules and regulations to adopt the findings of fact as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll make a motion we vote to grant preliminary and final subdivision approval of the following stipulations 2.1 through 2.3 as outlined in the staff memorandum.
Second.
Any discussion?
It's a pretty straightforward request.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Somehow I've got a Kimberly note on my,
No, when you're.
on your memo. So. Looking for extensions now, right?
Yes, yep.
Other business.
Oh, I have it too.
Correct?
Correct.
Yeah, you got the same thing, okay. We have a request under other business for Richard P. Fazigny as owner for property at 201 Kearsarge Way, requesting an additional 6-month extension to the subdivision approval, originally granted by the planning board on October 20th, 2022. This property is on Assessor's Map 218, Lot 5, and lies in the Single Residence B SRB District.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I have a question about the timing. I'm a little confused on how many months have passed by and exactly when the extension will expire. So if the planning board approved in October of 27th of 22, the planning director gave them a 6-month extension, so that puts them till April of this year, correct? And they want another 6 months from us?
So
The approval is good for a year.
well, the first approval is only good for 6 months.
Yeah.
So the planning director can grant another 6 months, that would equal a year. And then they can ask the planning board for up to another 6 months. So in total, it would be 18 months for them to get the subdivision recorded.
All right, so we're looking at a drop dead, so it's a total of 18 months, correct?
Right, from the original date.
If granted.
If granted, yeah.
If granted, so that would push them, at least to my figuring, to March of '24. I just had a hard time leaving it open-ended.
November, December.
6 months from
April.
November is
April,
actually
right?
May.
April of '24?
Yep.
Okay, April '24.
April 27th.
Yeah, April 27th would be 6 months.
So does somebody want to make a motion to one of those effects
I'll make a motion
or
we
modify it?
vote to grant an additional 6-month extension to the planning board approval of the subdivision.
Second.
Any discussion? You okay with that, Jim?
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Extension granted. Request of Port Harbor Land LLC as owner for property at 2 Russell Street, requesting an additional 6-month extension to the subdivision approval originally granted December 15th, 2022, and 1-year extensions to site plan approval and conditional use permit approvals originally granted December 15th, 2022. This property is on Assessor's Map 118, Lot 28, Map 124, Lot 12, Map 125, Lot 21, Map 119, Lot 4, Map 119, Lot 1-1C, and lies in Character District 5, or CD5, North End Incentive Overlay District, Historic District, and Downtown Overlay District.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I have a similar concern with this one. Unless I'm figuring it wrong, they're asking for these extensions 3 months early. Shouldn't they be asking for these in December versus September if they want? Because if we grant these, we'll be granting them a 15-month extension, not a 12-month.
Well, you'll be granting from,
December.
it'll all coordinate with the original approval.
Well, then why don't they wait till December?
Well, the December planning board meeting is after, I think it's the 21st. I mean,
It's also an extraordinarily large project, and if it were me, I wouldn't wait till the last minute. That's what I would say. You know, it's not granting it additional 3 months, it's just granting the
Right.
time limits requested.
But, well, if we grant it in September, isn't that 3 months prior?
No. No, it's,
Because it says it's in an
I get your
additional
point, but I think we have that discretion. I don't think we have to wait, nor does the applicant have to wait.
Okay, so we all acknowledge we're granting this 3 months early.
It expires in December. So if granted, it would be 3 months early, roughly.
Okay.
And there's two or three or four bundled in here. Is this all, it can be separate motions or it can be, you know, one motion for
It's
all.
written in one. In
I make a motion that we consider them all simultaneously.
There's just the one recommendation, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
to vote to grant an additional 6-month extension to the planning board approval of the subdivision.
Yeah, I'm,
Oh, I was reading the notes, sorry, a lot of notes.
so, do we have a motion just to
Take
grant
that
them all?
Yep.
Is that a motion?
Well,
That was a motion for the,
It's a
for
motion
the
to
first
grant
one.
them all.
Let's
Do we
take,
have a second?
sure.
second.
Any discussion? Folks comfortable? All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll be voting no. I voted no a year ago, so I'm going to vote no
Okay.
again.
We have a no vote, the motion carries. I don't have anything to update folks on. The planning board rules and procedures, I have a request this afternoon from the city attorney to postpone discussion of those. She would like to be with us, and I have no objection to that. I get thinking, after speaking with her, it might make sense if the board has the time and the inclination for us to just have a workshop just for that, to get through them, which we could do theoretically even next week. I hate to suggest that, but if she's available.
Sooner the better.
Sure, as long as she can be there for us, that'd be great.
So,
get it
So if we
done.
do that, would you want to start at 6 o'clock? Or 6:30?
that sounded like a hope.
Pizza?
I'm fine with that, because I don't think we're going to need a lot of time, but
Right, it might be an hour.
are folks available to do that next week if the city attorney is?
Looking.
Are you
Yes.
looking?
I may not get an answer, but
Yeah.
why don't we let the full board know?
Sorry, actually, I have to look. I can't remember these things.
So next,
Okay, if the board is
Somebody invented calendars.
amenable to that, we'll let everybody know tomorrow.
Thank you.
this is Friend's birthday.
And 6 o'clock would work for most people?
Yes. That's free.
And we can talk about other things if you like, otherwise, we can have an early evening, which we didn't expect, at least I didn't expect this morning.
One
None
tiny
of us did.
One tiny question, because you mentioned it, any about the master plan scope. I know we created a committee, reached out to the high school, I think.
Oh, there is one thing. There's a group, and I'm going to discuss this with Zach, the superintendent. I didn't even realize the McLean Law Firm that I'm doing a lot of work with is involved with a civic group, and you may know about this. I forget the exact title, but it's a nonprofit promoting civic engagement by students statewide. And we're not going to ask for statewide participation in our master plan, but that group does have interest in this sort of thing, so they may provide some coordination with the students. So I'll see what the school thinks about that, but the McLean firm was interested in, just today, put me in touch with some folks with that organization.
So do we know what is that our next goal, or what's our next goal, or what's our next meeting on it?
Our next meeting is for me to get the proposed scope for the requests for proposals to my fellow committee members, so we can talk about it and bring it to this board.
Sounds good. Thank you.
And if there's nothing else, yes, Bill?
Did you need another member for the, a regular member for the capital plan?
CIP.
Yes, and the only person who contacted me was Mr. Hewitt. So we have Mr. Mahana, myself, and Mr. Hewitt, I believe, are the members. Anything else? I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.